We're lucky enough to be joined to talk about the marketplace and about these new technologies by the SMMT Chief Executive, Paul Everitt. Paul, we're here indoors because it's pretty wet out there, but as you quite rightly say, that makes the driving today a little bit more challenging. Also gives chance for some of the manufacturers to show off some of their sort of safety tricks, and it's one of the things that you've been featuring heavily today.
Yeah, I think the progress that we're making in road safety and the technologies that are now available, are very important. And I think one of the things we're trying to do today is for journalists to get them to perhaps take a closer look and therefore explain them a little bit more to their readers or listeners, because I think that the cars, they look very much the same, don't they? They get more stylish, perhaps they get a bit more fuel efficient, but people don't particularly look that closely at the technology or on the road safety side. So today is really about saying to people that there is some new stuff there. It is interesting, and it has an important role to play in ensuring that not just the driver and the passengers in the car are safer, but ensuring that the whole road environment becomes safer, particularly for vulnerable road users.
Perhaps we're guilty of putting things in the cars, technology in the cars to save lives, which people don't necessarily understand what they're buying into.
But do they understand? I think on a certain extent we all drive, and really the less complex it is, the better, really. And I think that's what we've tried to do in terms of the way in which the technology works. So if you look at things like electronic stability control, you don't know what's happening. It's only when, as we've got today, the opportunity to test the vehicles with it on and with it off, that you really see how much of a difference it makes to your ability to control the car in difficult circumstances. And similarly, some of the predictive braking technologies. Again, we don't really want people to have to think about it too much, and indeed the safety benefit comes from the technology being able to be just slightly more responsive than you are as a driver, and therefore make the sort of millisecond differences that helps perhaps avoid an accident rather than have one.
Well, it's a massive display of technology, but let's turn, if we may, to the wider marketplace. It's been a pretty volatile 12 months or so. We all know the reasons why. I don't think we need to rehearse those again. But how do you see things developing perhaps over the next 12 months? Slightly more stable, sales beginning to move back up again, finance a little easier to obtain?
Well, I think it's a challenging environment. Again, I think we expect around 1.93 million new cars to be registered in 2011, just over 2 million in 2012. So still quite a difficult environment. And if you give a comparison, in the pre-recession days we were selling more like 2.4 million. So that's a big chunk of the marketplace that for us has gone. So it means that both manufacturers and dealers are having to work an awful lot harder to sustain their business, and perhaps we're seeing a slightly different balance in businesses in the franchise dealerships. So a different balance between the number or the amount of used, new and service and repair business that they do. And I think for a consumer perspective, that's quite attractive, because we're all having to work a bit harder. Pricing has to be that much more keen, and therefore more opportunities to get a good deal.
So from the consumer's point of view, it is better value for money.
Yeah, we would always like to think that we're delivering better value for money, but I think that's even more certain at the moment because of the conditions that we're in. The financing side, I think, has certainly got a lot better than it was a year, 18 months ago. I think we would all still feel that the banks and the finance houses are probably taking quite a large margin, given that base rates are still at an all-time low. We still see quite high margins between that sort of base rate and what the consumer has to pay, or what vehicle manufacturers have to sort of absorb in order to make that financing competitive. But by and large, I think we've hit a period of stability. After 2008, 2009 through 2010, it was a roller coaster ride. We are now into a period of stability where hopefully we start to see from the end of this year slow but steady growth.
Will that growth be moved along more rapidly by the hybrids that are coming in, by the electric cars, by the increasing complexity of the diesel cars. I think people are looking more closely at the alternatives now, the greener alternatives, more fuel-conscious alternatives. But perhaps the market not quite ready to go with all of those developments yet. We've been looking at electric cars today. They're still quite expensive.
Yeah, I think when you start to look at the very cutting edge of the newest new technology, yes, they are expensive, and that's why the government has agreed to introduce the consumer, significant consumer incentive to help with that process. But I think the trends are established. We're moving to low, ultra low carbon vehicles. I think we see that as to comply with increasingly stringent regulation, both here in Europe but also in other parts of the world. But from the consumer's perspective, the big driver here is fuel costs. We all know what the situation is. Prices have risen very dramatically. We do not expect long term for them to do anything else but actually increase, and therefore our job is to deliver up more fuel-efficient vehicles at prices that people can afford and which do make sense for them. The interesting thing I think in the marketplace is that many vehicle manufacturers have had sort of super economic vehicles, so vehicles that they've set up specifically to hit very good numbers on fuel efficiency. And by and large, in previous times, they were not the one that the consumer wanted or were prepared to pay for. I think today, those are by and large the ones that consumers want, because they can, the marginal additional cost in purchase price is more than being made up in much better running costs.
We seem to be going forward, though, with a multiplicity of alternative engines, discarding for the moment, or setting aside for the moment, petrol engines, the increasingly complex and ultra-fuel efficient diesels, electric cars, hybrids of various sorts, regenerative power systems, hydrogen, fuel cells. I mean, there are many options. Which of those do you think longer term are going to actually take the market share? Hazard a guess.
No. Well, I think one of the challenges for everybody is that we are going to have to get used to the fact that there is a portfolio of technologies out there, and they are going to be with us for over quite a period of time. I don't think that today there is any one that is going to kind of stand out and win. And in some cases, what we'll see is a blending, if you like, and you can already see it. So, we're focusing very much on the next generation combustion engines to be even more efficient. But we can see how those engines, downsized, highly optimized, may well fit with a battery electric in a range extended battery electric vehicle. So you can see an obvious linkage there. I think the challenge for us as an industry is to make sure that our consumers understand the capabilities and different driving characteristics that these different technologies will deliver, and ensure that the consumer is buying the right vehicle for their mix of driving. Because I think to a certain extent, I mean, it's still true in between petrol and diesel. A diesel is ideal for a high proportion of motorway driving. Why would you not want a diesel? But I think with more technologies, there are more choices for the consumer to make. So the obligation is on us and our dealer networks to explain these more effectively to the consumer.
Thank you, Paul. I'm going to close with a question which it's been very much the chat of the moment on our website. These ultra bright headlights, and they seem to have few, other than the car makers, in favour of them. We're hearing lots and lots of chat through our website of people who just violently object to them. Is that situation likely to change?
Well, that people will be violently object to them.
I know there's an increasing campaign.
I mean, I would say that we've looked at this quite carefully, particularly over the last few months. We do not see that the sort of glare associated with these particular headlights are more frequent than glare associated with any other type of headlights. I know that people believe them to be the case, but certainly we've not seen any evidence to suggest that is actually what happens. I think that we work very closely with the regulatory authorities. There is no doubt that there are significant road safety benefits associated with what the greater illumination that they do bring, particularly in difficult circumstances, such as that we might be enjoying today. So, I understand people's concerns, and it's not something that we are treating lightly. But I do believe that at the moment, the evidence suggests is they are a benefit, and a significant benefit.
Well, we'll see what that stirs up on the website. Thank you very much, Paul, for your time. Much appreciated. Thank you.